Hi, guys. Thank you and welcome to another podcast. We have Adam Schwab, the founder of Luxury Escapes. We are so grateful and blessed to have him on the show. Yeah, thank you for coming on, Adam.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. So, huge name, right, in the market, and a lot of people like to know the journey, right? How did you get here and all that? Like, it wasn't just an overnight success. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, maybe even as a little boy, right? What you were like growing up? Like, what was, were you good at school, not good at school? What were things like, and then your like sort of timeline into where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, so pretty good at school. Combination of I was never good at the really complex stuff. So I'm very fast at answering stuff. So like simple maths, like in primary school, was great with. When you start getting to the really complicated specialist type math stuff,
Yeah.
it wasn't as good. My co-founder Jez is really good at that stuff. But yeah, I sort of top couple of percent into what TA and her wise. So it was okay. But that said, like you get a lot of mates in the top 2%. So like it's all relative, right? So yeah, generally did okay at school. Probably did better at university actually. So my uni marks were top 10 in law, which is 10% of the top 3%. So that was probably better than my school marks, ironically.
Yeah.
So just kind of, it was probably better. I try and continue to learn. So I got better as I went. So my marks at school got better as I got older. My marks at uni got better. My first semester wasn't amazing. By the end of it, I was getting sort of 90s in commerce and doing pretty well. So like it was a learning journey. Like it definitely a fair bit of hard work. I'm not naturally super intellectual, but sort of curious and work hard and pretty quick to correct my mistakes.
Cool. And then what did you go into university? What was your sort of journey then?
I did law commerce at uni and then became a lawyer for a couple of years. I was a paralegal while I was at uni. And then spent a couple of years at a firm called Freehills, now Herbert Smith Freehills, one of the biggest, if not the biggest law firm in the country.
Yeah.
Working in that sort of M&A group, which is the sort of the glamour corporate law group with some incredibly smart people, far smarter than me. But you just learn a lot working for this caliber of person. And you certainly learn a lot about precision, getting stuff right, hard work. Probably the hardest I've ever worked was when I was a lawyer, sort of second year lawyer. You kind of expected the really, really hard workers to do 300 hours plus a month. That's billable. I was probably that next level down, but you certainly smash it out pretty hard.
Cool. And then what happened after then? Like, did you sort of say to yourself, this isn't for me, it's long hours?
Like I was an okay lawyer, but not a superstar by any stretch. Probably would have more likely moved on to banking or consulting, which is what I'm naturally more commercial and legal. But Jeremy, my co-founder, and we had a couple of sort of small businesses over the journey. We had 12 assignments to kids, and then we had another one. Well, actually, that was together, and then I had a different one where I sold law notes to law students. So we've done a few things together, and Jez was really pushing. And this is 2004. Remember, this is well before the days of entrepreneurs being called pre-Zuck, pre-Spiegel, Musk was around from PayPal, but obviously SpaceX, Tesla days. So this is when entrepreneurship was kind of still a dirty word, 2004. And we were 23, 24, 25, 24. And he was really pushing to start a business. And Jez is a really sort of strategic thinker and thinks outside the box. So when everybody does one thing, he'll do the other, which is a really important skill to have as an entrepreneur. You got to be able to be completely contrarian in many ways. And he very much is that. And he really pushed us to start our first business. And we just organically noticed there was sort of a market for high-end backpackers. And we lived in Melbourne. So high-end backpackers in Melbourne didn't have places to stay. So you didn't want to stay. If you're staying there for 3 or 4 months, staying in a city for 3, 4, 6 months, you don't want to stay in a hostel. You can't afford a hotel. You can't get a lease. Where do these people stay? And there's sort of this sort of underground marketplace for apartments, but it wasn't really particularly well done. So we just started doing that. We started renting apartments and sub-licensing them to high-end backpackers. And that was our first ever business outside Jess's bank. I was a lawyer, our first non-professional business, but our first actual business for ourselves. And started that in 04, so Cup Week 04, so 20 years ago exactly, almost to the week.
Wow.
And that was when we set up our first apartment, and we were sort of away. It was a really big learning experience. So we had to learn how to, we were living at home, so we had to learn how to rent an apartment, furnish an apartment, fill the hardest part's filling it. So getting tenants in, that's the greatest challenge of any business is getting revenue. We talk about always like the glamorous stuff, but it's just selling, and you have to be able to sell. So that was our first real challenge, and managed to start it. I had actually taken a leave of absence from Freehills, so we were going to see how the business went. If it went well, I wouldn't go back. If it went badly, I'd go back or do something professional again. Within a few months, we realized this has actually got product market fit. It wasn't never going to be a massive scaled business, no competitive advantage in this business, but it was product market fit. So we were making some money. We weren't working that hard, and it was a great education for us into how to run a business.
So you started off just starting. So a lot of people feel stuck when they're first starting off, and they get stuck in the trenches, you know, and they're paralyzed. They want things to be perfect before they even start. Is there any advice or anything just around this stage of just, you know, getting people just to start?
Yeah, well, probably that starting a business is really hard, but the really hard part's getting to that product market fit rate. It really depends what business you're starting. If you're starting a marketplace or a SaaS business, it's a lot of capital up front. You can't get to profitability for a long time.
Right.
You've got to build that base. It's the real chicken and egg. We started the apartments business we started, and then later the e-commerce businesses, you can get to profitability much more quickly. So it really depends on the businesses and the need to raise capital. We were certainly in our later business a negative working capital profile. So we got paid by our customers before we pay our suppliers. So you have that cash balance, which means much lower barriers to entry, but higher cash, better negative working capital, higher cash flow. So there's generally pros and cons to every business you start. There's always going to be really hard parts and parts where you have a tailwind, and you got to lean into the tailwind and really fight through the hard parts. And so our business was the apartments business. Capital was not a huge issue because we basically renting the apartments, we weren't buying them, and we just basically had to furnish them. But it was really sort of hard work and grind. Our challenge was we have to get customers in and make a margin. We were risking it. If we had an empty apartment, that's money out of our pocket. We're losing money. Not only are we not making money, we're paying money. So that's a pretty tough position to be. So I think the better business model there is Airbnb. So Airbnb was a platform essentially. We were the principal. So much better being a platform if you can build it.
Wow. And then this business grew.
Yeah, so it never grew ridiculously. Like you're sort of limited by scale. You're effectively local, and we were setting up every apartment. So we were putting the furniture together. We were making the beds. We were showing the tenants through. We were telling them all the rules when they moved in. We were collecting the rents. Like it was cash in most parts.
Yes.
We eventually worked out a credit card thing, but a lot of people just came and paid cash. So then you had to drop the cash at the bank and all this kind of stuff. It's just basically finding our way through our very first. We were pretty young, 24, 25, pretty young. We had a business turn over a couple $1 million definitely within 2 years, possibly within less. So it was a okay business, but never particularly profitable. The margins were tight. You're super competitive. You're basically competing against hostels and other people doing this. So you're not making much margin. You didn't own the capital. So it was in many ways a challenged business, and we knew it was challenged, but it was a great business to get started with. We actually bought some properties a few years later, and we then rented them to ourselves. And then we sold them because we just didn't like debt. And that was how we made our first proper money. We made like $1 million buying and selling half a dozen properties. But we were a bit de-risked because we were renting them to ourselves for obviously a much better yield than you'd get if you rented them on the free market. So that was our first sort of win of any sort. And we took that $1 million, this is 2009, and invested in our first e-commerce business, our first sort of platform, which was originally a restaurant booking business with a discount element, which kind of became book a restaurant, open table, that kind of business. We actually changed the model pretty quickly. But then when we started a Groupon clone in 2010 called Zoopon, which is our first proper big e-commerce business. And that became deals.com.au, which eventually sort of didn't become Luxury Escapes. We took a lot of the learnings from deals.com. So deals.com actually still does exist. And we took those learnings and a travel-only version called Luxury Escapes.
So it went from deals.com.au to Luxury Escapes.
Well, they're different businesses.
That was
But I think what deals.com.au was a marketplace, in many ways, a curated marketplace for discounted experiences. So you wanted to get a restaurant meal, you get 30, 40% off. You get a discounted massage, you get activities, you get cinema tickets, you get always a bit of travel, always different stuff, and even products we started doing sort of a couple of years later. So stuff was just like short-term sales and great discounts for the customers. And the aim was for the vendors, be it a restaurant, be it a massage place, be it a product place, was to get lots of revenue quickly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't highly profitable revenue for them. It was, in many cases, call it inverted commas, loss-making revenue. That loss is just an investment in marketing. Yes. And in some cases, the business will make money. But the problem is when you're working with small business, they don't always necessarily understand the nature of you've got to spend money to acquire a customer. And that was essentially what we were. We were no different to a newspaper ad. But the notion of what sort of group buying was business is expected to make a profit off it sort of at the margin level, which this is not how it works. So a lot of businesses really did get it and understood it and used it really well, but probably the majority didn't. And that led to a bit of a downward spiral for the sector. And we had 82 competitors. Now it's really just us who does it. We have a small part of our other business that does it. And Groupon kind of are still around, but 80 of the 82 effectively no longer operate because the business was structurally challenged. We did manage to notice that travel was a really great segment. It was a little bit different for a couple of reasons. One, hotels really care about hospitality. There's TripAdvisor. There's a lot of other ways to make sure hotels do a good job. And the second thing is it's a much bigger basket size. So you're selling $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 packages. So because of that, you can afford to spend more on marketing. You've got a better lifetime value of customer. Just a much more sustainable business than the local experiences. We still do local experiences, but really focusing on high end. So the high end local experiences does work and it is profitable on a contribution margin basis, but the sort of lower price stuff, unless you're a big volume like a cinema ticket, it generally doesn't work. You've got to have the slightly nicer, higher end places. And that fits in really well with Luxury Escapes. So we sell to people looking for experiences to do in their city, but also attaching to travel. So we have a lot of experiences in Bali, in Thailand, in London, New York. So we have sort of two parts of that business, and it actually dovetails really well into the broader travel business.
When first going ahead with and looking at luxury hotels, did it start off with as a luxury hotel business, or did you sort of go in there thinking, okay, we're going to try it first from like a smaller hotel, and then did it grow into that
But
type?
that's what happened. None of this was intentional, though. So you kind of just do what you can. When you're a small business, you just don't have access to big luxury hotels. They don't want to work with you.
No.
So you sort of end up working mostly with boutique, independently owned. They just want to make money, and we were great for helping them make money. As we got bigger, more brand credibility, we started working with bigger and bigger brands, bigger and bigger hotels. Now we work with pretty much all the big hotel chains globally. And we're still working with individual hotels, but also the hotel chains. So there wouldn't be really any big brand that we haven't worked with. Yeah, I don't think there is any that we haven't worked with over the sort of the 13, 14 years. We work with some more. Some hotels we generate $100 million plus, some chains, and other chains we do sort of nothing, or tiny amounts. So it obviously varies. We have great relationships with some chains, and other chains are probably less favorable for us, but we have generally owners love working with us. We essentially make money for hotel owners, which is different to the hotel operator. Hotel operator makes money indirectly, but the owner of the hotel, which is usually a family office or an investment trust, they make lots of money when they do a Luxury Escapes deal.
What was the big break for you in terms of getting that big first name hotel?
Oh, there was no real. Look at this, the sort of Freakonomics do a great podcast on incrementality, and we've just been an incremental trial and error, chip away business. There really wasn't. Yeah, we had some massive campaigns with like a SeaWorld and some other great partners, but generally it's sort of chipping away, getting better and better at what we do. There aren't really any. I don't think there are silver bullets in business. It's very rare. It's just about doing lots and lots of stuff right, and also doing lots of stuff wrong, but learning from the mistakes and correcting really quickly. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's one massive deal. There's not one. It was just iterative. We just got better. Jez, Josh, Mark, myself. We just got better at learning stuff, and then hired better and better people. So it's a really iterative process. It's not a sort of one shot, one kill. It is how do you constantly get better and better. And we're still learning every day now. We've been around 14 years, if you count the deals.com days.
Wow.
And we're still learning stuff every day. There's heaps of stuff we need to get better from the marketing front, the supply front, from the tech front.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned a lot about chipping away. I feel like for you and for a lot of the listeners out there, I feel like you've got a high value on resilience. What can you mention about how important mindset is to get to where to get to where you are now? There have been some really hard challenges that you've had to face. Opposed to the strategy and the marketing, how has your mindset been attributed to the success of where you are now?
Yeah, I think there's three ingredients in successful business. One is a huge amount of luck. So you can't control luck, but you got to be able to obviously grasp when it comes your way. But luck's probably the biggest factor. Then resilience is a massive factor, and then execution skill. You can't need all three. Like you can be really lucky, but if you're hopeless, that it's not going to work. But if you can be really strong executor, And if you have no luck, well, it doesn't matter either. So it's kind of, so you need to have resilience as well to be able to keep riding it out. So I think it's a combination of all. I'm not sure which is less important in terms of the two. Clearly, luck is the most. If you're not lucky, think about it. You got to be born in the right place, right time, to the right people, and then start your business at the right time. There's a huge amount of luck that you need, but you got to capture that luck. So you got to be super gritty, super resilient. That's probably the most. Look at what most VCs look for. It probably is grit and resilience. Obviously, you got
Wow.
to execute though. If you can't execute, forget about it. Like you got to be
Yeah.
able to sort of get to the first base.
Yes.
There's a degree of execution skill you need, but that's kind of pay to play. But you've got to be super resilient and forget about it if you don't have luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Because this is the stuff that people don't really look and can see or even talk about, is the struggle that entrepreneurs and founders go through to get to have a successful business. In that time when you're feeling like crap, the world is against you, like you're going to lose, what are the things that you've have to think about to get you to overcome those times?
Scott Galloway talks about things are never as bad as they seem, and things are never as good as they seem. So I think when things are apparently really bad, I think you've got to work super hard. That's where the resilience and grit really kicks in. So maybe you had some bad luck to get to that point. You've had some good luck and some bad luck, and you've had good strategy or bad strategy, whatever it is, but you've got to be able to be super gritty and super resilient. And for us, we just never took no for an answer. Like when people thought, when it looked like we might die, and there's probably been a couple of instances where we may have died. One was existential, just a legal issue this is in the apartments days with a really dodgy sort of bunch of landlord essentially, who was willing to break the law to try and kill us. And we just wouldn't accept it. We knew what they were doing was wrong, and we fought like hell. And there wasn't a guarantee we'd win, but we ended up winning. Went to VCAT, which is the tribunal in Victoria, and I was against the QC, went before a member, and we won. But for that, most people I think would have just said, you know what, these guys are a billion-dollar business. They want to kill us. I'll just roll over. There's no way we were rolling over. So that's pure grit resilience. We're just going to fight like this. We'll fight till we die, essentially. And there was another instance in 2012 when we just had some cash flow issues. We were just too aggressive, bought a few businesses. Our core business was always profitable, but the other businesses had bigger liabilities than we expected, and it almost took us down. And we just kept fighting and fighting and fighting, put some cash in ourselves to make sure we got over the hump. But it was just don't die. Was always them. And sometimes you can't help it. Death is inevitable, but you want to fight like hell till that point. You want to keep helping the doctor and doing everything you can to stay alive, while they're giving you CPR, and just not flatline out. And we refuse to flatline out.
Yes, yes. And this brings me to my next question, is that now that you're a big player in the luxury hotel business, I'm noticing that there are a lot of lookalikes, even from the guys like Flight Centre, they're coming in wanting a piece of the action. How are you protecting this brand, and how are you needing to really stay up there and be relevant?
In fairness, Flighties pre-existed us by a fair way. So they were well and truly established when we started by about 20, 30 years. But nonetheless, they're still a really great competitor. But
They're bringing on like a new competitor like My Barley.
We actually bought that business, funnily enough. So that business also existed us. It was started by a guy called Randall Deere. He's a great entrepreneur based in the Gold Coast. And then Flighties bought it about 4 years ago and continued to invest in it, and have done a really good job, to both Randall and Flighties, Bruce credit. So they were before us, so they could argue we sort of came after them. But we built a customer base, a customer list, which they never did. So it was a slightly different model, but very similar in many respects. I think the overall question you're asking, if I can get it right, is what are you doing to build competitive advantage? So how do you stay more profitable than your competitors? Anything of this sort of Hamilton Helmut 7 powers, clearly brand is a massive one for a D2C e-commerce business. And we're constantly thinking, how can we continue to build our brand? And that's treating customers well. That's obviously doing marketing right. That's having great product. There's a few sort of different elements to brand. It's not simply brand marketing. Brand marketing is one tiny element of brand. There's lots of other elements of brand. Direct marketing as well it can be really powerful for brand. So brand is probably the biggest differentiator we have had historically. If you think of the other powers that Hamilton talks about, scale, a little bit of scale in our legacy flash business, because we move so many room nights. We can move $10 million of sales from one hotel in a month. That's more than any business in the world can move, including Booking.com, the world's biggest and best travel business. So we've got the ability to move a huge amount of volume really quickly. So we do have scale in that. And we've got some cornered resource because we have scale. We can go to some
Mhm.
hotels and say, give us the world's best deal, and they do. So that's kind of a cornered resource of great exclusive deals. What we've never been able to build, and what virtually no e-commerce business builds, is what we call switching costs. So
Yes.
think of the great businesses that have switching costs. So SAP, Oracle, AWS, Azure. If you want to switch from AWS, that's a couple of $1 million. If you want to switch from Salesforce, that's a couple of $1 million. Big, expensive
Wow.
moves. That's real switching costs. It's real value in the business. If you're an e-commerce business, just type in a different URL. You got zero switching costs. So we've been spending the last couple of years. How do we build switching costs in? The only real way for a direct-to-consumer business is building a loyalty plan, a loyalty scheme. So we launched our subscription loyalty in June. So it's where customers pay, get incredible discounts. So for $249 a year, you can save a couple of grand. And that's partly to give great value to customers, also to avoid that Google tax, which happens every time you need to sell to somebody. So, and that's one big thing we're building. Another big thing is we're building a earn burn loyalty as well with status tiers. So we want people to be bought in. So we'll give lots of value to you. Could be free transfers, could be discounts, all these other discounts of insurance, all this other stuff you'll get, which is really valuable if you're loyal to us. So obviously airlines do an amazing job at that. Same time, we're trying to build a flywheel or network effect, which is what Jeff Bezos did so well at Amazon. Look, he built that flywheel. Lots more products, get better, lots more customers, get better products, more products, start Amazon Prime, give more value to Amazon Prime, fast delivery, more inclusions, get more members, can fund that better. So we're trying to build that same
Right.
flywheel with our loyalty. It's really hard to do, especially in travel. Still a work in progress. The early signs are good. The activity we've got from our members is really good. They clearly outspend non-members significantly post-membership, but still a lot of work we've got to do there. So trying to build switching cost, trying to build network effect. We've got counter positioning in a sense with the bookings and the flight centers. And in terms of process power, probably not something we'll be able to really get. So if you think of the sort of the powers we have, which is really brand and a bit of scale, they're fine. We're trying to really build switching costs and network effects. So if we can get those two things built, that'll give us a really nice competitive advantage certainly to new businesses and hopefully to some big existing businesses.
What are some 2 or 3 points or things that you can attribute to that if you were your youngest self today, what tips could you give entrepreneurs that are starting off their business or that are struggling at the moment? What what type of things could you give in terms of points and some tips?
Yeah, so many things. There's a few quick ones that I like to tell sort of up and coming entrepreneurs. One is there's 3 that really jump to mind. The first one, don't force an idea. Like lots of people want to be entrepreneurs now. It's like really cool to be an entrepreneur now. When we started at 04, it wasn't cool at all. Now it's cool. So
Yes.
which is great. Like we love that. You love that. I love that. But we don't want people to just quit their great corporate job, earning 200 grand a year and sit around thinking I can be an entrepreneur. Let the
Yeah.
idea come to you and try and solve a problem. So if you see a problem, like we saw that real problem, that regional problem, the apartments thing for backpackers, that was a real problem. We saw it exist. We thought we can solve this. So think of it organically. If you see a problem in your life, in your friend's life, in your family's life, and you think this is a problem I can solve, go out and solve that. Don't just try and sort of back solve a business when a problem doesn't exist. So that's kind of point 1. Point 2 is if you do find a real problem to solve and a starting season product market fit, put your whole self into it. So don't do it as a side hustle, hour a week on weekends. Actually quit your job or take a leave of absence, put some real skin in the game, and you're going to have a much, much more powerful impact. And the third point, and so those 2 are kind of as you're starting the business. The third one is once you've started is be really careful who you hire. But if you do hire the wrong person and you hear this sort of hire slow, fire fast, absolutely move on team members who aren't performing quickly. And this is as much for the benefit of the team member. People think, no one wants to get fired. They want to stay there forever. If you think that person's not doing a good job, they're probably hating life at the moment as well. They probably know they're not achieving. They're probably too scared to quit or don't want to quit or comfortable. You're actually doing the person a favor and you're obviously doing the business a favor. Everybody hates to fire people. It's the worst thing you do as a manager, as a founder. It's literally terrible. But sometimes you've got to cop the bad medicine and do what feels hard. And it's in the interest of the business and in the interest of the person. If it's not working after a week, 2 weeks, certainly 4 weeks, it's almost certainly never going to work. We've had thousands of employees. I can very, very rarely think where someone started terribly and they've suddenly switched it over and become really good. Good people start well, and maybe they're not 0 to 100 day one, but you see that progress, you see that trend line heading up. See it with salespeople really clearly because you got a dollar target, but you can see it with everyone. Does this person show initiative? Are they gritty? Do they have entrepreneurial skills? Do they love the business? Do they want to work really hard? Do they really want to serve the customer? All these really key things. If these things exist, that this person's a gun, keep them. If this person doesn't care, isn't treating customers well, is lazy, shows no initiative, don't just force it and hope they'll change miraculously. Things don't change. The trend is your friend. And if someone's not working, do them a favor, do the business a favor, and take the hard call and end it sooner rather than later.
Thank you guys so much. If you guys haven't joined the Luxury Plus subscription, it's an awesome model. I've just joined. Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate you, and thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your knowledge.
Awesome to be here. Thanks for
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.